Welcome to Our Town, a 30-minute podcast brought to you by Best Bark Communications, a small but fierce client-centered marketing company powered by decades of experience and well-established business networks.
This is Andy Ockershouse, and this is Our Town, and I am delighted to welcome a pal from many, many years who is now a giant in the advertising world, Marc Bluestein. Marc, welcome to Our Town.
Thanks, Andy. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Well, you know, you're not a born in Our Town, but you've become a big part of it now, Blue. And everybody calls him Blue, and I love the name Bluestein. But how in the world, where are you from? Where did you come from to get to this place?
Yeah, Andy, so I'm originally from Philadelphia. My mom's family grew up there. My dad and mom, my dad's from New Jersey. They met at Temple University.
Wow.
And
with Bill Cosby.
In the 60s. Yeah. Bill Cosby and I think John Chaney might have still been coaching the Temple basketball team back then. And so I was born in Philadelphia, but back in 1977, when I was about to start kindergarten, my dad relocated for a job opportunity here in the Washington, D.C. area. We settled in Gaithersburg, and then my parents bought a house in Germantown, and that's where my mom and dad still live, and I grew up, kindergarten through high school here.
How many people know that? Of all the people I know that know you, I never thought you were from Washington. I knew you were from Philly,
yeah,
but I never thought you spent all that time. So you are part of Our Town.
I think so. That's my allegiances. All my sports allegiances are part of this town, and absolutely.
You're not a Eagles fan. You're a Redskin fan.
No, I'm a Redskin fan, Andy. I bleed burgundy and gold.
I remember that.
We
used to hustle the tickets. Remember those days?
Yeah.
Bro? We don't have to do that anymore. But you have done so well with your career. Now, how in the world did you end up leaving Washington for South Florida?
Yeah, so growing up, my sport was baseball, and I always dreamed of playing.
You were a catcher, weren't you?
Well, actually, a first baseman. I was a lefty. They wouldn't let. I had the size to catch, but they didn't let the lefties catch. Right, so I was a first baseman primarily.
Because your glove was all.
And I wanted to. Always dreamed of playing college baseball, and had some offers at some schools in the Northeast. Division II, some Division III, but I really just wanted to try to play in Florida. I loved the campus. I went down and visited the University of Tampa and a school in Lakeland, Florida, where at the time the Detroit Tigers was their spring training home.
Oh my
Florida
gosh.
Southern. I talked to both the coaches and just fell in love with Tampa as a city and the University of Tampa as a campus. Walked onto the baseball team and just recognized really fast that Division II baseball in Tampa, Florida was nothing that I was going to be competitive at, and so ended up spending a year. But I didn't want to leave Tampa.
It's a 12-month sport, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So I spent a year and a half at the University of Tampa, and then decided to focus on my studies and transferred to the north side of town to the University of South Florida. And Tampa, to this day, we were talking before we went on the air. I was just there last week. It holds a very, very special place in my heart.
I didn't know that until we talked. I just heard the same story from Ray Schulte, who went to school down there at USF because of his brother in Tampa, and everybody loves Tampa.
They do.
And I can see why. The weather, but that's 12 months a year playing baseball.
12 months a year playing baseball.
So you passed that up, and then you decided to come back to the Washington area?
I did. I was really in flux. I loved Tampa. While I was in college, the Tampa Bay Lightning joined the NHL in the 1992-93 season, and I interned while I was in college at the Lightning. Huge hockey fan, and really had an opportunity to stay in Tampa, potentially as part of the organization. But there was just something about the Northeast and the change of seasons. And I really just felt like my family was close. And as you know, Andy, I'm a big family guy. So I relocated back to the D.C. area and got a job in the advertising industry at WB Donor Advertising in Baltimore, Maryland. And
that's where you came back to what you started with Donor.
Yeah, and that's where I started
my commuting?
Career. I was living for the first 8 or 9 months in my mom and dad's house, saving some money, and then I moved into an apartment in the Mount Washington part of Baltimore, about 10 minutes outside of where my job was, and my rent, I shared it with 3 guys, and my rent was $195 a month, and I finally that was the only thing I could afford based on an $18,000 salary.
Right. But you were learning.
But I was learning, and I loved every bit of it. And working at Donor was an unbelievable entree into the advertising and specifically the media planning and buying world at the time.
They were headquartered in Detroit, correct?
That's exactly right.
But they had a
Southfield,
Baltimore.
Michigan. Yep.
I knew the guy that ran the office in Baltimore. He always had a suntan. I can't remember his name.
Herb Freed.
Herb Freed. Did he not always look like $1 million?
Absolutely.
He was Mr. National
the George Hamilton of advertising.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? God, they were the good old days. But Donor was a great shop and a good place to learn.
And it was, and it kept me really close still to Washington and my family. And I was dating a girl in Washington at the time. So on Fridays I'd leave Baltimore. I'd spend the weekend in Washington. She lived in Woodley Park, and we would take advantage of the city. And I'd go back on Monday morning, and all that was great.
Woodley Park,
I left Washington for New York, as you know.
Well, what accounts did you work on in Baltimore that helped you in your career?
So the first piece of business I worked on there was they were the agency of record for Fila. So I worked on the Fila tennis business and the Fila ski and snowboard business, which was pretty awesome.
The foreign company, right?
Fila out of the Italian company. And they had started to get into baseball a little bit more with their first big deal. They had signed Sammy Sosa as an endorser.
Wow.
And so I worked on that business. I worked on the Mid-Atlantic Milk Marketing Association.
I remember them very well.
And I also worked on what was First National Bank of Maryland, which became All First, which ultimately became M&T. But what was great about those three accounts, not only were they media planning and buying, but they all used sports sponsorships and sports media buys as part of their communications platform. So the media director asked me, since I was a big sports junkie, to become the sports marketing expert. We need you. We need somebody, Blue, that understands this.
Right.
These clients want more and more sponsorship, so I'm going to make you the sports marketing manager of the department. And I said to him, "That's awesome. What does that mean?" He said, "I don't know. You need to go figure it out." So here I was, Andy, at 23 years old, like really embracing as a sports fan this medium called sports marketing, right?
Absolutely.
And it was the door opener for me to kind of really start to build the platform for my career in the sports marketing industry.
What did they do for you financially? Did they take care of you?
He gave me. I went from $18,000 to $22,000.
That's not bad, bro.
So instead of paying my rent, I could pay rent and buy groceries. So that was well worth it. But Andy, I didn't care. I would have done it for free.
Oh, no question about it.
That started, me being involved in the world of sports, and my passion as a sports fan.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you can't be a sports athlete, right, or work in pro sports as a player or a general manager, well, this was the next. To me, it was the next best thing.
Wonderful opportunity for you. Now, how in the world did that lead? Because when I first met you, you were with Time Life.
Yeah, Time Inc. Yeah.
And how did that transpire?
Yeah.
You were in New York then.
I was in New York, so
how did you get from Baltimore to New York?
I'll tell you. So I'd always dreamed. No, actually, U-Haul. I'd always dreamed of living and working in Manhattan. My dad, as I mentioned earlier, was from North Jersey. My grandparents' house, I would be at their house, and I could see the skyline of New York City from their backyard.
It's the Big Apple.
Right?
You got to do it.
And we would go into the city a lot, and just always dreamed of living and working in Manhattan. And after a couple years working at Donor, I really felt, from a career advancement standpoint, being in the marketing and advertising community, what better place than New York? And I was at a time in my life, both personally and professionally, that I felt like if I was going to do this,
now is the time.
Now is the time. So I was about 26, 27 years old.
Yeah, but I would have said this. I tell people that don't wait till you're 40. If you can do it at 30, do it at 30.
That's what I did. And
Take
Andy,
your shot.
I set up through relationships I had. I went to New York for a full business week, and I had interviews at 8 advertising agencies. And by the time I came back the next week in Baltimore, I got 5 job offers. And I ended up taking a job with what at the time was DMB&B Advertising, became Media
Bill
Best.
Dane Birnbaum.
Yeah, that's right. Darcy Benton something and Bowles. I forget the third B.
Benton and Bowles.
Benton and Bowles, right? So, and
big agency.
They had just started a sports properties group in their media department.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to work on Coca-Cola Classic, their Coca-Cola business, on their NFL and their NASCAR programs. So it was a no-brainer.
Boy, you're on the bottom.
That was the one that had a sports themed opportunity, which is why I got the job. It wasn't for the money. It wasn't
your experience in donor.
My experience at donor, and I wanted to stay in sports. So my time,
doubleheader.
Yeah, my time there, I got great experience working on the Coke business. Then I transitioned into Norelco, electric shavers and beard and mustache trimmers. And with them, we got to work with Major League Baseball. We worked with the X Games and the Gravity Games. We did a lot with ESPN Radio. The Norelco, you'll love this story.
Oh, my.
When they had what was called the 21-day challenge. You use an electric shaver for 21 days, and if you don't like the shave, they'll give you your money back. So we did deals with ESPN Radio in the first year of Mike and Mike's show, where they took the 21-day challenge. We did the same thing with the Jim Rome radio show.
Wow.
But for me, I was expanding my network in the sports space, right? Working
Connecting
with
the
ESPN,
dots,
working with Fox Sports, working with Sports Illustrated. And then I worked in a little bit of Procter & Gamble business as well at the time. And so that foundation, working in a big New York agency on brands like Coke and Norelco and all the different consumer packaged goods and the Procter & Gamble portfolio was unbelievable experience.
Oh, my God.
Until the next opportunity in my
You
career
would have
came
paid
along.
for that experience.
Absolutely.
Just to
Absolutely.
get that door open.
And then that's what led me to Sports Illustrated from MediaVest.
From SI. But I thought you were all-time life. Oh, you just worked for the sports
No, I
magazine.
just worked for Sports Illustrated. So
they were hot in those days.
yeah,
correct?
they were, Andy, and they were still, print was still pretty amazing
absolutely.
and king, and they had 3.2 million readers every week of the magazine.
Great writers.
But, and we at MediaVest, and even in my days at Donor, had been a client placing ads, print ads in SI over the years. So I had a lot of good friends, a lot of good relationships, and they had decided they were going to start a sponsorship group. And here was the challenge they had. They knew their sales staff was the best print salesmen and saleswomen in all of New York, right? But they didn't understand. They knew how to sell a page in a magazine. They didn't understand TV. They didn't understand promotions and sweepstakes. They were digital was still kind of. They knew print, right? So SI wanted to take. They had this iconic brand, Sports Illustrated, and they had these two amazing franchises in Sportsman of the Year and the swimsuit issue. And they really wanted to make those sponsorship platforms where you get advertising in the magazine. They were going to do television specials where you'd get billboards and vignettes and commercial time. And they get an online component, and they get a sweepstakes component because SI had never licensed their intellectual property to anybody before. So one of the first deals we ever did for Sportsman of the Year was with Miller. But I think you guys got to get to a break, and I'd love to finish that story when we get
go
back.
Go ahead, finish it.
Okay.
We'll take a break. No, we can do that. So that's why we're here.
We went to Miller Beer, and we said they did a $1 million sponsorship. And they had TV time.
You went up
digital,
to Milwaukee to see them?
Went to Milwaukee and did them, and they got the digital component, they got television, they got print in the magazine, and they got an online component. But the most important thing was, at the time, they were selling 30 packs of Miller beer, and we put a sticker on every 30 pack that said, if you go to si.com/swimsuit, well, in those days it was cnnsi.com/swimsuit, and enter your code, you and a guest could win a trip to next year's swimsuit shoot in Barbados. So they sold, in that period, they spent $1 million on a sponsorship. They sold $36 million worth of beer in an 8-week promotional period. And, the winner and their guest got to go to swimsuit shoot with our photographers and our editors and our models to Barbados the next year.
What a fabulous promotion, Blue.
Yeah.
My goodness. And it put SI on several maps at that time, too, because that was the beginning of multimedia.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we're talking to Marc Bluestein with his fabulous story about Time Life and Sports Illustrated and the swimsuit models. I like it all, Blue. And this is Our Town, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Tony Sybil here to tell everybody about our newest restaurant over off New York Avenue. It's called Ivy City Smokehouse, 1356 Oakey Street Northeast, right next to the Heck Company warehouse. It is terrific, and we have the only seafood smoker in the District of Columbia. So when you go to your grocery stores or your delis, ask for Ivy City products. 202-529-3300 or ivycitysmokehouse.com.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
This is Our Town. I'm talking to Marc Bluestein, the Blue Man, and he was telling us a fabulous story about Sports Illustrated and their marketing campaign, and I knew that he was deeply involved in it when he came to work in Washington. So tell me about what else did they have? The Sportsman of the Year?
Yeah, Andy, so another program we did, so it was the swimsuit and then it was Sportsman of the Year. And we did a similar program where we bought a time buy at the time on Fox Sports to announce our Sportsman of the Year and do a television show. James Brown actually hosted our first television show, and we had a series of 4 sponsors, and it was Pontiac, and it was State Farm, Old Spice, and I don't remember the fourth, but one of my favorite stories about this one was we did the show in L.A. at the famous Shrine Auditorium.
You didn't do it in New York. Huh?
We didn't do it in New York. And with Pontiac, part of their promotion was win a trip to L.A. for you and a guest, a VIP trip to the show in L.A. So we did a promotion, and our consumer marketing people managed the promotion. They call me and they say, we have a winner, but we have a problem. And I said, well, what's the problem? They said, well, Pontiac is the sponsor of the sweepstakes, and a gentleman from New Mexico with the last name Ford won the promotion. And his name was Carl Ford. I'll never forget this. And I had the pleasure and the privilege of calling Carl Ford of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and telling him he had won, and he's going to be our VIP guest, him and a guest, at the pre-party, at the Four Seasons in L.A., and the Shrine Auditorium, and the post-party. And the gentleman was more excited. It couldn't have been more excited, right? Then I had to call the brand manager at Pontiac at the time, whose name was Dino. And I said, hey, Dino, it's Blue from SI, and we've got a winner. And I said, but I don't know how to tell you this, but a guy named Ford won the Pontiac promotion. And, we chuckled like you chuckled. And, the funny part about Mr. Carl Ford, as I told Dino, was he said he'd be glad to change his name to Pontiac that weekend. They could call him Dino Pontiac as long as they didn't take the trip away from him.
He wanted the trip.
It was, and it worked out great. And we had, lots of fun and that whole year. And that was the year that the Diamondbacks won the World Series, and Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling were the co-sportsmen of the year that particular year.
Janice knows about Randy Johnson.
The big unit.
The big unit. Who now is a photographer, and if you'll find him at NASCAR tracks, loves to photograph NASCAR. We see him all over, especially the Phoenix race, because he lives in Arizona still. And you got a 6'10" guy wearing a photo vest, carrying around all the equipment like everybody else. And it's pretty neat to see. And takes beautiful pictures. Has an unbelievable website. He's got a gallery.
Man,
yeah.
Blue. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, you've had a wonderful career up to all your doings in New York, and then how in the world why would you come to a backwater advertising town like Washington?
Yeah, Andy, so I think it was I had done the New York thing, and I had checked that box, and I really thought I was going to be a lifer, especially at Sports Illustrated.
Think so.
I walked in there, it's sort of a dream come true.
They were the golden years of SI.
You're working at a place that you started reading the magazine when I was 8 years old, right? So I thought, you talk about dreams come true, why would I leave? But,
I remember, I still got the first one somewhere. It had a horse on the cover.
Yeah, it does. That's
horse won the Derby.
Absolutely right. So, but when I was a donor, I was a client in buying media on Home Team Sports.
Uh-huh.
And our friend John Collis was our sales contact at the time.
And we were the Orioles station.
You were the Orioles station, you were the Cap station, you were the Wizard station. And John and I had always stayed very good friends. And we stayed in touch. If he'd come to New York, we'd talk. And he always say to me, you ever interested in coming back down? And it was never the right time. Well, this was now sort of early 2002. I was engaged. I was getting married that summer, and I was traveling a tremendous amount for Sports Illustrated. And I didn't know if I wanted to keep traveling, about to be newly married. And John had called me. I was stuck in a 12-hour snow delay in O'Hare Airport. And I said, hey, listen, Maryland, I was coming to University of Maryland, was closing Cole Fieldhouse in March of 2002 against UVA.
Wow.
And as you know, I'm a huge Maryland basketball fan.
Absolutely.
I was coming back from New York for the game, and I said to John, well, I'm going to be in town. Let's have breakfast the next morning, right? And we had breakfast, and we talked, and he was running the Baltimore office. I
Right.
said, I don't want to come back to Baltimore. If I'm going to come back to Washington,
It's your
it's my
hometown.
hometown. I'd have to go to D.C. and where Bethesda was, and he had given my name to his manager and colleagues at the time, and we started to talk, and we had some good conversations, and sort of over the next couple of months, by the end of April, I got an offer that seemed really exciting, a real great place. I wouldn't have to travel. And it was the opportunity, as you said, come home to the place I grew up and sell marketing and advertising for the teams that I love and root for. The Orioles, the Caps, the Wizards, Maryland football and basketball at the time was on the network. And that was what really got me hooked. Now, I will tell you, if we're being completely honest, my wife, as you know, is a New Yorker.
Absolutely.
We didn't want to live and raise a family in New York. And she was a little bit hesitant to come. And she said, hey, if this is good for your career and our future, I'm fully supportive. But I don't know that I want to stay in Washington forever. I said, well, we'll do it for 2 to 3 years, and then we'll figure out what's next. And 16 years later, we're still trying to figure out what's next.
With 4 children.
With 4
so you must
children.
have liked something about it, Blue.
We do, and being here in the town I grew up in,
Well,
with the teams I love, with my
Well,
parents
you sold
close.
media, and you were a
Yeah.
big star at Comcast Sportsnet because I was there and watched you, and I knew what you were doing, and you brought a touch of New York, and we really needed that.
Yeah,
too.
you always had said that. Yes, thank you.
And then you had the opportunity to start your own business.
Yeah.
That must have been the most exciting thing in your life. It was a risk, I know that. You had to stick your neck out, Blue. But you established a sports and entertainment company called Aquarius.
I did.
And I said, what in the world is Bluestein doing? What's with this Aquarius thing? And next thing I know, you got a big office, a lot of people working for you. Tell us about that. How did Aquarius come about?
How it came about really was almost by accident. I was having conversations and trying to with some folks both within the industry and outside the industry, and a couple of people that I really trust from a mentor standpoint. And I knew sort of where I was at and what I wanted to do for my career and my career growth, that, the regional sports network space had been really good to me, but I kind of wanted to advance and grow and figure it out. So I really started to actively pursue, other jobs. And at the time, I was a final candidate for a vice president of sales and marketing position with the Kansas City Chiefs, and for a chief sales officer position with the United States Olympic Committee. Now, as you know, at that time, we had just had our second set of twins. So my older twins at the time were 2.5,
believe it.
and I had newborns. And I'm thinking, my family, we're about to relocate to Kansas City, Missouri, or Colorado Springs, Colorado. But I was talking to a client who I'd done business with that had done very well. And, here's the part about sports, as you know, Andy. People that are not in this business think it's sexy and it's appealing. And you get folks that have done very well in other industries, whether it's technology, whether it's telecommunications, whether it's, in this particular case, residential home building. And they have done well, and they're looking to pursue new things and new avenues in sort of their secondary phase of their business life. And so I had a former client who really liked it, the sports industry, over the years that we had got to know each other and work together. He said, hey, did you ever think about writing a business plan and maybe doing something on your own? And I said, I went to the University of Sun and Fun. They didn't teach us how to write business plans. But what I
This
did
has got to be Rick.
It was our
Rick
good,
DeBella.
Rick DeBella,
Very sweet man.
great man, and another Pulte Homes executive at the time named, who was Rick's boss in headquartered in Detroit, named Jeff Parsegian. And I talked to Pars and I talked to DeBella, and they were very encouraging. And I downloaded a template off the internet on how to write a business plan, and it was over a Thanksgiving break of 2008, and by the end of Thanksgiving weekend, I had a 15-page business plan of something I was calling the Aquarius Sports Group, and I presented it to those guys, and it
Where
just
did
happened
Aquarius
really.
come from, though?
So Aquarius came from. So I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, I got you.
My grandfather he's a Pisces, but we're a week apart on birthdays.
Ain't nothing wrong with being a Pisces.
Right, and so he meant everything to me. He was my mentor, my special guy. My grandfather, great business leader. He had passed, but my older twins, Allie and Bryce, were also Aquarius. So when I was thinking about what I was going to call this company, I wasn't the kind of person that wanted my own name and my own business, right? I thought I wanted something that would be at the top of the alphabet, because if they list your companies, your company would be listed first, right? And then I looked at sort of some of the characteristics and traits of an Aquarius, and they really applied well to what I believed in my business principles. And so that's how the Aquarius name came. Wonderful from my zodiac symbol, my kids, and that's kind of where the name came from.
And having a family and having that involved in your life must have very important to you.
It is, Andy. I mean,
it's exciting.
It's very, very exciting.
I wish I'd have had the guts to do that, but I never had it.
It was...
Janice had it. She started her own business. I just couldn't do it.
And it was really the time I had talked to some people when I was really thinking about this, both executives in the industry and, as I mentioned, a couple of folks outside the industry, and they asked me, well, what do you really want? And I didn't know how to answer that question. I said, well, this is intriguing, but I felt like, do I want some security, knowing that I had 2 sets of twins under 3 at the time, right?
Babies!
And the way that we structured the deal was I had some comfort level that this wasn't going to be like 12 months and done. I felt like there was enough security that I could give this a good run for 2 to 3 years and see how it worked. And especially the folks within the sports marketing industry at the executive level that I talked about, they all said to me, hey, Blue, if you have a shot to do this, give it a shot, because if it doesn't work out, you don't like it, you're networked enough and you're good enough that you'll find a job.
You got friends.
And so once I kind of heard that, it really made me say, all right, I've got the security, I've got good advisors, if it doesn't work out or I don't like it, I'll go right back to work. And
there's nothing wrong with working.
It just happened, and I was really blessed very early in the company to get a couple of significant accounts and pieces of business
kept you alive,
that kept us alive, and we just have sort of grown from there. And I was telling Janice beforehand, we're about to complete year 9 and go into year 10.
This is a great American success story, and we're talking to Marc Bluestein about Aquarius. Even though this is the age of Aquarius, it's also the age of Pisces. This is Andy Ockersall, and this is Our Town. I'm talking to Marc Bluestein.
Are you retired or soon will be? Is your will up to date? Don't want to leave a mess for your family to clean up. I'm attorney Mike Collins, the guy who sends you those invitations to my estate planning seminar. I'll teach you how to save taxes, avoid probate, protect your heirs from lawsuits, bankruptcy, even the divorce court. Keep your money in your family with our innovative Reservoir Trust. Watch the mail for your invitation. Tuition's free when you register online at MikeCollins.com. That's MikeCollins.com.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. Brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
Let's talk about some of your clients, Blue. Let's get some plugs in here for things that you've done. You still live in Clarksville?
Still Clarksburg. So Clarksville is Howard County. I'm Clarksburg, Upper Montgomery County. We are there now, as
there
the
is
kids
a Clarksville,
there's
too.
a Clarksville right outside of Columbia. And then Clarksburg, where they built the new outlets up there where we are, right up 270, just a little north of Germantown. So that's where I'm at.
So 108?
No, that's Clarksville.
Is that Clarksville?
That's Clarksville. So
I get the Honda deal up there.
That's right. So, so some of our clients, our website was www.aquarius-se.com. You can find it there, but we got great brands that we're blessed and fortunate and privileged to work with and be a representative of their behalf. But AAA, the roadside assistance company, we are...
AAA is a huge account.
It was our first account, Andy. We've been with them since day one, and we started doing sports marketing for them in 5 markets. And through relationships, growth, some merger and acquisition activity, we'll go into next year doing sports marketing for them in 45 markets all around the country. Target Corporation, we work with them and doing all their activation with their vendor partners and their NASCAR program. So that's brand, consumer
that's
packaged
fabulous.
Hershey's.
Didn't one of those accounts get you connected with the NFL?
Yeah, I'll
Said
tell
you're
you
doing
about that
some
in a
charity
sec.
with
Yeah,
them?
I'll tell you about that in a second. But with Target, we do Hershey's and Kimberly-Clark and Kraft Foods and
Wow.
This weekend, Big Heart Pet Brands with the Milk Bone Dog Biscuits. We'll be down at Texas Motor Speedway. So that's at M&T Bank. We work with them and all their sports marketing efforts from Buffalo to the Mid-Atlantic region, in the hospital and healthcare space. MedStar Health here in this market, we handle all their sports sponsorships in Baltimore and Washington. Florida Hospital in the state of Florida.
How can you do all that?
Emory Healthcare in Atlanta. So that's kind of it. But yeah, about the NFL. So really quickly,
I know you did a lot at the Super Bowl.
I do. So I have the utmost privilege of serving on the USA Board of Trustees for the United Way worldwide,
Right.
Which is the largest, as you know, nonprofit organization in the world. $5 billion a year organization. American Red Cross, just to put this in perspective, is the second largest at $2.5 billion. So
they're enormous.
United Way worldwide. But when I came on board, the United Way has been the official charity of the National Football League for now 44 years.
I knew that.
When I came on board, that partnership had gotten a little bit stale from the transition of Commissioner. So Commissioner Rozelle was an unbelievable advocate to get it started. Commissioner Tagliabue took it to a whole nother level. But then Commissioner Goodell came in, and there was other things going on, other initiatives that he wanted to focus on around Play 60, and then ultimately concussion and the Heads Up program.
Oh, my.
And the United Way had sort of gotten a little bit lost. So what they asked me to do was be the executive board sponsor to the United Way NFL sponsorship and help re-energize, re-strategize, and really redevelop the relationship and using the NFL as a platform to promote United Way. So I've had an unbelievable opportunity to work with the National Football League, attend events actually with Commissioner Goodell from school redevelopment programs in places like the Bronx, New York, representing United Way at different functions at Super Bowl every year. And Andy, it's been amazing because
That's
the
been
NFL is
great.
a passion point for me, but giving back to the community, not only the community, I serve on local boards here, but to be able to serve on a worldwide board of the United States like the United Way and give back nationally,
Blue, that's been incredible.
is really fulfilling for me as well.
I mean, Blue, you've done so well. You've overcome your lack of talent.
Well, I don't know how good the talent is. I've overcome
No,
something.
you're
but
talented, Blue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you gave up your softball because I know you used to play a lot.
I did.
And that was great. It's great for you and great for
I
the
gave
family.
it up. I got 4 kids now, Andy, and
I know.
I had my years
and
of
you
playing
still got to take
sport,
them to school, baby.
and now I go to their sports, and that's what I love.
Tell us about your daughter.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, the athlete.
Yeah. So they're all athletes in their own way, but my daughter, my older twin girl, is a competitive gymnast in something called acrobatic gymnastics, which is where she works in pairs and trios
I've seen
and
that.
floor routines, and she's excuse me, an unbelievable little athlete.
How old is she, 8?
She's actually now 11 and a half. She'll be 12 in February.
Wow, you can't be that
But
old,
the last
Blue.
3 years, she competed at the USA Gymnastics Nationals competition in Louisville, Kentucky, Greensboro, North
Oh, that's a big
Carolina,
thing.
and Providence, Rhode Island. And if all goes well, next year she's on the track to potentially compete internationally. And USA Gymnastics
big international sport.
is lobbying to have acrobatic gymnastics become an Olympic sport by the time that we get around to the next Summer Olympics in 2020. So who knows? Maybe we'll have a future Olympian
Oh,
on
my
our
God,
hand.
that's
But
fabulous.
all of our kids are so invested in sports, and the lessons I learned in sports, both as a youth and now as an adult, the life lessons.
You're a great role model for your
the-
kids, Blue.
How they teach, it teaches them to be responsible to their coaches, to the referees, to their teammates, and I think everything that I learned in life was a foundation through sports. Listen, it's my business now. It's in our family's
your
DNA.
world,
It's
babe.
our world. Sports is our passion. Sports is my profession, and sports is our family's life. And I feel very
You're
blessed
a
to be able
great,
to do that.
Great example of somebody that's adopted it and have taken it to another level. I know how much that means to you. But we're so happy you came back to our town.
Well, I
And
am too.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
know that you were born in our town. You're part of our town. Even though you're from Philly, you're our guy. And being in our town's a big thing, Blue. This is the capital of the world. I keep telling people, it ain't Hollywood, but it ain't bad, baby.
It's awesome, Andy.
I'm
Well,
so
thank you.
glad.
This was so much fun.
Thank you so much, Marc
I love
Bluestein.
having you be in my life because you're a very special person
Well-
in this town. And you're a very special person to me.
Well, thank you so much. And that's double for me, Blue. That's the way I feel. And this has been Our Town. This is Andy Ockershausen with Marc Bluestein. And nothing but great success for you, Mark.
Thanks, Andy.
You've been listening to Our Town Season 1 with your host, Andy Ockershausen. New Our Town podcast episodes are released each Tuesday and Thursday. We welcome your comments and suggestions on how you like the show or who you'd like to hear from next. Catch us on Facebook at Our Town DC or visit our website at OurTownDC.com. Our special thanks to WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C. for hosting our podcasts.